To the families of the 2,977 people from more than 90 nations killed on September 11th, 2001 in New York City, Arlington, Virginia, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the 1,000 more who were injured. America and the world commemorate you and your loved ones, the pieces of your soul. We honor all those who risked and gave their lives in the minutes, hours, months, and years afterwards. The firefighters, police officers, EMTs and construction workers, and doctors and nurses, faith leaders, service members, veterans, and all of the everyday people who gave their all to rescue, recover, and rebuild. But it's so hard, whether it's the first year or the 20th. Children have grown up without parents, and parents have suffered without children. Husbands and wives have had to find ways forward without their partners in their life with them. And so on this day, Jill and I hold you close in our hearts and send you our love. And we hope that 20 years later, the memory of your beloved brings a smile to your lips, even while still bringing a tear to your eye. In the days that followed September 11th, 2001, we saw heroism everywhere, in places expected and unexpected. We also saw something all too rare, a true sense of national unity. Unity and resilience, the capacity to recover and repair in the face of trauma. Unity and service, the 9/11 generation stepping up to serve and protect in the face of terror, to get those terrorists who were responsible, to show everyone seeking to do harm to America that we will hunt you down and we will make you pay. That will never stop, today, tomorrow, ever, from protecting America. Yet we also witness the darker forces of human nature. Fear and anger, resentment and violence against Muslim Americans, true and faithful followers of a peaceful religion. We saw national unity bend. We learned that unity is the one thing that must never break. Unity is what makes us who we are, America at its best. To me, that's the central lesson of September 11th. It's that at our most vulnerable, in the push and pull of all that makes us human, in the battle for the soul of America, unity is our greatest strength. Unity doesn't mean we have to believe the same thing. But we must have a fundamental respect and faith in each other and in this nation.
All right, so today marks 20 years since the 9/11 terror attacks. And this, of course, is an incident that continues to haunt Americans and indeed the rest of the world. Now, ahead of the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, US President Joe Biden remembered the victims of 9/11. Biden said that unity is, of course, America's greatest strength. Listen in to what the American president had to say.
To the families of the 2,977 people from more than 90 nations killed on September 11th, 2001 in New York City, Arlington, Virginia, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the 1,000 more who were injured. America and the world commemorate you and your loved ones, the pieces of your soul. We honor all those who risked and gave their lives in the minutes, hours, months, and years afterwards. The firefighters, police officers, EMTs and construction workers, and doctors and nurses, faith leaders, service members, veterans, and all of the everyday people who gave their all to rescue, recover, and rebuild.
Now remember, on that fateful day, nearly about 3,000 people were killed, including more than 2,600 people who were at the World Trade Center in New York, after the hijackers managed to seize control of these commercial planes and then used them to attack the World Trade Center's Twin Towers and also the Pentagon just outside of Washington. Now, Biden, interestingly, has vowed to keep hunting down terrorists who pose a threat to U.S. security. The U.S. president has also acknowledged and condemned the sharp rise in the violence against the Muslim population in America in the aftermath of 9/11.
The days that followed September 11th, 2001, we saw heroism everywhere, in places expected and unexpected. We also saw something all too rare, true sense of national unity. Unity and resilience, the capacity to recover and repair in the face of trauma. Unity and service, the 9/11 generation stepping up to serve and protect in the face of terror, to get those terrorists who are responsible, to show everyone seeking to do harm to America that we will hunt you down and we will make you pay. That will never stop, today, tomorrow, ever, from protecting America. Yet we also witness the darker forces of human nature. Fear and anger, resentment and violence against Muslim Americans, true and faithful followers of a peaceful religion.
All right, so that was American President Joe Biden there reflecting back for the 20 years since the 9/11 terror attacks, and also to give us more insights in terms of how the Americans are looking the 20 years since the 9/11 terror attacks. We're joined in by Mr. Stephen Golub, who's an international affairs expert. He's joining us live from the United States of America. Mr. Golub, thank you very much indeed for joining us in this broadcast and beyond. So it's 20 years since the fateful day of 9/11. Many people say that this is in fact redefined the times that we live in. How is the United States looking back at the 20 years since?
Well, with sadness in many ways. You know, at the time of the attack, I recall, planes were grounded for about a week, and one of our favorite national songwriters, and in some ways almost a spokesperson, a singer named Bruce Springsteen, wrote a song called Empty Sky, in which he was talking not just about the sky being empty of planes, but our faith being robbed from us, our faith in our religion, in our God, whoever we worshipped, in our well-being and in humanity. And in many ways, we bounced back after that. There was a sense of unity about going after the terrorists, about defending democracy. But now we look back 20 years later. Obviously, Afghanistan is foremost in many people's minds. But it's not just Afghanistan. You know, the attack by Al-Qaeda on the U.S. was an attack on democracy. It was an attack on people, on tolerance. It was an expression of not just violent religious fundamentalism, but tribalism, that my religion is better than yours, my beliefs are better than yours, my people are better than yours, my tribe is better than yours. And sadly, what we've seen over the past 20 years in our own country and in other countries is a weakening of democracy and a strengthening of tribalism, with people hating or disliking or resenting other people simply for being different. So we're certainly not in the same despairing mood that we were in on that horrible day 20 years ago, but there is some sadness looking back at what's happened since then, not just because of those attacks, also because of economic harm, such as the crash of 2008 and the way social media affects us, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But there is still some sadness.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, the legacy of 9/11 is not just what happened the fateful day, but also what has happened since then, where the American president, George Bush, back then declared immediately a war on terror. So there have been wars that have been fought in Afghanistan, specifically the Taliban, after 20 years after having fought the Americans, is now back in power again. Would you like to reflect on the war on terror that the Americans initiated in the immediate aftermath of 9/11 attacks?
Look, in a narrow sense, I can't speak for India and what's going on for you folks, having a terror-supporting state right next door to you. We're much more fortunate in that regard. But in terms of the narrow sense of the war on terror, we're better off here in the United States. We're not as worried about it, even after the Taliban taking over Afghanistan again. But in terms of the broader scheme of things, Afghanistan became not just a war on terror, but an entire exercise in nation building that was so overly ambitious and unrealistic that it led partly to the failure that it failed. And as a result, we have the Taliban back in Afghanistan. It led to this war in Iraq, which had nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. For all of his sins and horrors, Saddam Hussein was a deadly enemy of Al-Qaeda, but we went to war there. And that led to so many repercussions, such as the growth of ISIS, the regional growth of Iran as a power, which in turn supports some terrorist groups. So many harms were committed, in terms of the war of terrorism. We violated our own human rights standards and the world's human rights standards, but it even was counterproductive in many ways in terms of limiting terrorism, in terms of combating it. ISIS is now a presence still in many countries in Asia and Africa, and part of that is due to the unproductive, counterproductive, I should say, Iraq war in particular, even more than the Afghanistan war that the U.S. embarked.
With all of this in context, 20 years since the war on terror began and 20 years since the 9/11 attacks, do you think America now feels that it is a more safer world than what it was before?
Good question. Again, in a narrow sense, perhaps we're not worried or panicked about terrorism the way we were right after 9/11. However, and now I'm going to still be narrow in terms of how America sees things. We've got growth of domestic terrorism here, in terms of some attacks that have taken place, not on the same scale as 9/11 certainly, but domestic groups that are well armed, that resent democracy, that are prepared to take up arms, and as witnessed by what took place when our Capitol building, where our Congress meets, was seized on January 6th, egged on by the former president of the United States and some of his allies. So in terms of Islamic terrorism, yes, perhaps safer. In terms of a threat to our way of life that's homegrown, that's worse than ever.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Stephen Golub, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.
Thank you.
Now, on the 11th of September in 2001, the United States witnessed what has been described as the worst ever terror attack on its soil, but the fear and anger had a ripple effect across the globe. Now, glued to their television sets, the world, of course, grieved along with the Americans. The attacks revealed the capabilities of armed, non-state group actors. Now, on the anniversary of the gruesome attack, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson made a compelling address. He said that the 9/11 attacks had failed to divide people and also their beliefs in democracy and freedom. Listen to what he had to say.
20 years ago, September 11th, 2001, became, in President Roosevelt's words after Pearl Harbor, a date which will live in infamy. On a crystal clear morning, terrorists attacked the United States with the simple goal of killing or maiming as many human beings as possible. And by inflicting such bloodshed in the world's greatest democracy, they tried to destroy the faith of free peoples everywhere, in the open societies which terrorists despise and which we cherish. But while the terrorists imposed their burden of grief and suffering, and while the threat persists today, we can now say, with the perspective of 20 years, that they failed to shake our belief in freedom and democracy. They failed to drive our nations apart, or to cause us to abandon our values, or to live in permanent fear.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.